Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA, episode 238. I am Brendan. UFC 286, Edwards versus Usman, numero tres. This fight was better than I expected. Let's put it that way. We're going to cover the main card here. We're going to break down all the fights, including the main event. We're going to cover the main card: Justin Gaethje, Rafael Fiziev, Gunnar Nelson, Brian Barberena, Jennifer Maia, Casey O'Neill. I believe that was it for the main card. No, Marvin Vettori versus Roman Dolidze was also on the main card. So we're going to cover those here. We're going to cover the prelims in the next video and then the early prelims after that. Real quick, before we start breaking down the fights, I really would appreciate it if you like this kind of stuff. Subscribe to the channel so you know the next video is coming out. I do 2 or 3 videos every single week breaking down fights within the UFC, Bellator, PFL, ONE FC, all that good stuff. Let's get started. Okay. Leon Edwards, man. Hey, what the heck? Like, seriously. I mean, this is not, I'm just going to be honest. I didn't call this in the slightest. This is not what I thought was going to happen. In hindsight, knowing what happened and his game plan going in and the way he was able to execute it makes sense with his athleticism. And maybe there was some merit to Leon Edwards saying that, sea-level Edwards, the Salt Lake City being a higher altitude, and that caused problems. So, hey, I just did not see it. Good on him. Let's talk about the rounds because there is a little bit of not I don't know. I haven't seen on Twitter yet if there's been some blow-ups. I know that while we were watching the fight, my friend and I were watching the fight. We had a slight disagreement over one round, but the rest of the rounds we were on the same page. And then the commentary team, they were kind of all over the place. Fight starts out, there's a hard leg kick from Leon to start the fight. So this was the story of the fight for me, was Leon Edwards' leg kicks. Usman went for a takedown, Edwards shucked him off immediately. Leon Edwards landed another hard leg kick. I think Usman's leg got jacked up in that first round. His right leg did. So he came out in a southpaw stance and his right leg got hurt real bad. So I think he went back to his orthodox stance. Edwards with 2 hard body kicks. To be honest, I even told my friend, I was like, hey, shout out to Sam. What's up? I don't think this doesn't look like Usman's ready. It doesn't look like he's here right now. Something just seemed off to me when I was watching this. And I didn't feel like that by the end, but it seemed like the first round, something just wasn't clicking for him. He just looked very tentative. Edwards hooked the gloves. Oh, by the way, if you guys are looking for a specific fight breakdown, it's in the timestamps are down below. It was a good round for Edwards with those low kicks. They were huge for me. Edwards also got warned for hooking the gloves. They were in a bit of a scramble, and his gloves got laced inside. His fingers went inside the gloves like this of Usman during a takedown attempt or a recovery from a takedown attempt during some clinch work against the fence, and he got warned about that. Lots of fouls, by the way, did play a role in how this fight turned out. So first round here, Leon Edwards outstriking him 20-12. Those leg kicks, like I said, I think how many did he land in that first round? 9 leg kicks in that first round. As far as head strikes go, they're about the same. Body kicks, they were the same as far as attempted, way more, but body shots, about the same. It was those leg kicks that made the big difference for me as far as how I scored it. So Usman running out before the round, and then Edward protests slightly. So he was like, hey, what are you doing, man? And Usman's like, come on, let's go. I actually didn't like that. I'm all for eagerness and being ready to fight and ready to get out there, but they tell you, stay back outside the warning track before the fight or before every round starts. Sometimes it's not a big deal, but if a fighter says, hey, dude, what is he doing? You kind of got to go with it. Like, hey, he is breaking the rules. Don't let him do that. It was minor, but it was one of those things that kind of stood out to me. As we were talking about nut kicks, Hassam and I were talking about some nut kicks. Usman got kicked in the nuts. He said it was a decent kick. It looked like it did hit him low. But the thing is, he recovered so fast. I'm not judging him, but he does do this a lot. Every single fight, he seems to get kicked in the cup. Now, I think it's because of the way he's defending against them. he turns his body and opens up like this, and he moved that leg out, and he kind of, I don't know. Oh, he steps back. So he steps away from the kick, but he opens up his body instead of swiping that leg back that's being attacked, which means the leg will naturally carry, if it was thrown at with an upward trajectory, is going to naturally carry up a little bit higher, and it's going to hit him in the nuts. So it's happened in multiple fights. It's happened in title fights with him. That whole thing where he got kicked right in the stomach, and it hurt him bad from Colby Covington, and he, played it up quite a bit. So I'm never a fan when I see that happen. So let's see here. Usman was not using his jab very well early on in the fight, and he just couldn't find his way in. Edward caught him with a left and a knee that really hurt Usman bad this round. There was a nice right hand from Usman in this round as well. He did get a takedown momentarily. Good back and forth. Usman landing some damage along the fence with Edwards landing a good left hand. The round was close. Usman did much better in this round than he did in the first, and he landed more, but the huge knee that rocked him in the left hand did more damage for me, in my opinion. So I had Edwards up, and if you look at the striking numbers, they do go in favor of Usman. All right, so one of the judges did give this round to Usman, and I could see that if you're just going off of the numbers. But if you go back and look who did the most damage, who was really close, and I don't want to hear about control time, so the 45 seconds, he was not on the ground for 45 seconds. The takedown was momentary. The damage was in favor of Edwards, in my opinion, in that round, and the striking numbers are so close to where, like, if everything else was equal, I could see you maybe giving that to Usman. I just didn't see it. It's not a robbery or totally strange, but it was close enough to where if you just gave the aggression, because Usman was moving forward quite a bit as well. He was the whole fight. So some nice leg kicks from Edwards. Again, Usman got in on a single leg takedown, and then there was this fence grab from Edwards that stopped the takedown. So because the fence grab was so blatant and so egregious, it caused Usman not to be able to get the takedown, and Herb Dean stops the fight immediately, gives a point deduction, and then they get separated and they get stood up. So this is the same thing that happened last week, where people got really upset about it because Rafael Sunsao ends up getting defeated in that last round, in which a point deduction happened, against. Oh, good grief! I don't remember the guy's name. It doesn't matter. Against his opponent, and then it didn't matter because the guy who cheated ended up winning. So you could say that the guy who cheated here ended up winning. He cheated multiple times, and he ended up winning. So I said this last week, and I'll say it again. All right, I'm gonna be a little bit more not cordial is not the right word. Tactful in the way that I say that this time. If you're an up and coming fighter, if you are this like as a fighter, I'll just throw this out first, and then as a fan, I think we have like a different response. A fan or critic, maybe we have a different responsibility. So, as a fighter, an up and coming fighter. So those of you guys who are in the military or who played, I promise this relates, or who played sports, team sports especially, like football, basketball, stuff like that. There's only so many coaches, right? You got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coaches maybe, but they can't watch everybody all the time. So when you're running the cardio drills at the end of practice, what happened when the coaches looked away? And be honest. Be honest. Did you go your hardest every single time? Were you doing push-ups when the drill sergeant or RDC wasn't looking at you? Or were you just waiting and looking and waiting for him to turn around so then you could start your push-ups again? Were you waiting for the coach to turn around before you really went at it and started running again? Right? So, if you can get away with it, I don't like it. I'm not a fan of it. But we see things that the referee can't. I would say, as a fighter coming up, you try and fight clean. Try to follow the rules. Do everything in your power to fight in an upstanding way. Be respectful. If things happen, obviously you're not purposely trying to kick people in the nuts. You're not purposely trying to poke people in the eyes. You're not purposely trying to grab the fence. But on the other side of that, I would not compromise yourself winning a fight just to appease a referee telling you to not extend the fingers when you're reaching out. Right? If that's throwing off your game so much that you're going to lose the fight and get knocked out, why not just take the point? Take the point for it, because you still might win that way. And I know that seems shitty. But yeah, when you're getting up, if your fingers happen to go in the fence and you pull yourself up that way, so be it. You get a point deduction, fine. At least you're not on the ground. Obviously, I'm not advocating for cheating, but like it works. We've got a champion who won a fight in which he cheated multiple times. And I'm not even sour about this one. I think they did play a role. Like this round played a role, and I'll talk about it maybe a little bit at the end. We could address it now. I want to finish this thought out. If you look at this thing and say, oh, the guy who commits the least amount of fouls wins, and we're going to reward him more because of it. We're going to reward him more and maybe even give him the win more often than not. Then I would say following the rules is the most important thing. But based off the results and based off what we're seeing, it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is winning. What about your public perception? Well, I'm going to tell you, nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to look at that Wikipedia page or that page on ShareDog or the page, your history on the UFC, and see next to your second win against Kamaru Usman, grabbed fence in round 3 to avoid takedown. There's not going to be no asterisk next to it, right? There just isn't, okay? So with that being said, as a fan, what would I like to see? Punishments immediately, the way Herb Dean did. Immediately take a point. I thought that was the right thing to do. I thought it was excellent. Second, there's a cup check, eye poke, points every time. Just take a point. I don't care if you take 4 points away in a round. Got to start doing it, man. Cheating is too lucrative right now. It's too lucrative. It is not beneficial to avoid these things at the detriment of getting better position. It's just not. So, you're not going to, if the punishments don't increase, I would advocate for the other side. Go for it. So, in this round, though, he does grab the fence. Back to the fight. So, in this round, he does grab the fence, right? And that does stop the takedown, but he immediately gets a point deduction from it. Usman tried to play like he got kicked in the nuts again, but Herb said, I don't think so. No. I saw that one. That was clean. The leg kicks were on the knees, and he was pushing the knee back. Edwards was really hurt in the lead leg of Usman. The round was close. Edwards didn't land anything other than leg kicks in that round, it didn't feel like. Third round, 14-15. I'm right. Yeah, so he landed some decent body shots, 8 of 8, 14 of 15 leg kicks, but only 2 of 9 going upstairs. So I wrote that other than leg kicks and the elbow, so there was this elbow and a jab from Usman that landed really big in that round, so that's probably why it was going to be 28-28. But I initially had this round for Edwards. I got convinced otherwise, but I could see this round going to Edwards. You see 24-17 as far as significant strikes, meaning that it would have been a 9-9 round. And one of the judges saw it that way as well. So this was not a blowout round, even though Usman did have a minute of control time, and he did manage to get a takedown in that round. He didn't have a ton of control, didn't do a lot of work with it, didn't do a lot of damage, definitely didn't go over for any submissions. Edwards did a great job avoiding being controlled. He did an excellent job of that. So real quick, before we go on to the next round, I'll just address it now, knowing how we saw the things go down in the next 2 rounds. Do I think Edwards grabbing the fence outright change the outcome of the fight? I'm going to say no. Okay. And I know that might not sound right because you're like, well, how could I know that? Well, because all the evidence points to the contrary. So all the evidence points to that Usman wasn't going to be able to hold him down. He wasn't able to hold him down the entire fight. It didn't matter if he took him down in the center. It didn't matter if he took him down on the cage. It didn't matter if he reversed a takedown and got him down in transit. It didn't matter what he did. He couldn't hold him there. Okay? So I do think he would have been able to get up. I think that round could have gone to Edwards either way. So, hey, I don't think it affected the fight the way it could have. If you notice in the rest of the fight, let's say Edwards won the first 3 rounds, and then after that, Usman wins the next 2 by wrestling him. And we said, oh, man, if Edwards didn't do that fence grab, he would have been controlled that whole round, and that would have been Usman's round. It wouldn't have been a draw, right? We could say that. But we saw in round 4 and round 5, which we're going to talk about, that's not what we saw. That's not what happened. So round 4 here, lead left hook pawing out there from Edwards. Oh, good grief. It was looking really nice. Usman was not liking the leg kicks. He was trying to rush him down, really close the distance and crowd the kicker. Usman was having problems putting weight on that lead leg. A nice hook from Edwards as Usman tries to close the distance. Edwards defends a takedown, makes Usman pay with 2 left hands. Usman was slipping a bit on that left leg. It was a good round for Edwards. He landed more damage and avoided being controlled. So if you look at the striking numbers, obviously Usman was doing something, but it was less. This is one of his worst rounds other than the first round as far as landing strikes. 25-14 in favor of Edwards. The first round, one of the reasons why the striking numbers were so low is they were very tentative for the first 2.5 minutes. Not a lot of action. So honestly, Usman, he tried to pick it up. He attempted 37 strikes here, which is less than he attempted in the first round. But it's not like he wasn't trying to attempt anything. He was attempting plenty, attempted more than he did in the previous round. It's just he wasn't landing. Edwards was able to avoid a lot of those strikes, and it was just Usman was trying to grapple a lot more, and Edwards just had his number. He kept failing on takedowns. You look at the takedown attempts in this round, 1 of 4, right? 51 seconds of control time, but not really. Let's see here. Last round, Usman failed on a takedown, takes some punishment again. Edwards landing uppercuts and a beautiful elbow. Edwards was keeping the distance as he was being backed up and defending the takedowns. Usman finally gets a takedown with 90 seconds left in the fight. Right back up with no damage. Usman pressing forward, still going for takedowns for some reason. He's not going to win doing that, in my opinion. And that was an Edwards round in this last one for me. I had him up 48-46. Could have been 49. Could have been 49-46 or 49-45. Wait, no. Huh? Whatever. I had a 48-46. Yes. Last round here, 28-20 as far as significant strikes go. All again in favor of Edwards. He outstruck him in all but the second round. Let's look at the scorecards real quick, and then we'll talk about the future of the division and those 2 fighters, and then we'll move on to some exciting stuff. One of the other really exciting fights. So, looking at the scorecards here, let's see if there's anything really crazy. We already saw him on the broadcast, and I know that there's things I disagree with, but I don't see anything that's crazy. Right. Ben Cartlidge had the first 2 rounds for Edwards. Makes sense. Third round, he had for Edwards. All right. Initially, I would even agree with that. That's fine. Fourth round, he gave to Usman. I don't agree with that one. Why? Oh, yeah, hold on. He got outstruck in that round. What did he land in that fourth round? Failed on 3 of his 4 attempts, barely controlled him, got outstruck by all. That was one of Usman's worst rounds. He did land. He landed some good shots in there, but Edwards was able to do so much more. Maybe it was because of the pressure. I think that one's actually. I don't agree with that one. I disagree with that one wholeheartedly. And then the last round he gave to Edwards, which I think is correct. Chris Lee Let's see how he saw it. So first 2 rounds for Edwards, understandable. Third round he gave to Usman. Sure. I don't necessarily agree, even though that's how I scored it. I could be convinced otherwise. Like I said, I could be convinced that Edwards won that. That was my initial impression, but I got convinced otherwise immediately. And then he had Edwards winning the last 2 rounds. So he only gave Usman 1 round, and I think that is accurate. And then here, this David Leatherby giving the first round to Edwards, second round to Usman, which, like I said, upon initial watch, I would heavily disagree with, but looking at the numbers, maybe I could see it. Third round he gave to Usman, understandable, and this is where we got the draw, the 47-47, giving the majority decision to Leon Edwards. So great win for him. Let's go ahead and look at that division. Leon Edwards remains a champion. Kamaru Usman probably remains the number 1 contender. Colby Covington was stage side. He was on weight to make sure in case anybody fell out so he could step in. He is ready to go. As he says, Khamzat Chimaev is not going to be fighting at welterweight next. He's going to be fighting at middleweight as per Dana White. Belal Muhammad is available, son. Belal Muhammad versus Kamaru Usman is a good fight. I think that's unfair to Muhammad in certain ways. I think that putting him against Usman without giving him a title shot kind of screws some things up. I think now that Usman can't fight Edwards next, having him take on Rakhmonov would be fun. I think having him take Khamzat would be fun. But like I said, because Khamzat's not going to be fighting at welterweight, we're going to have to wait for that one, unfortunately. I mean, you could have Stephen Thompson fight Usman, but why? I mean, we saw what would happen. We saw what happens with all these guys. We saw what happened to Belal Muhammad. We saw what happened with Gilbert Burns, and we saw what happened when he fought. Who else did he fought that wrestled him down? I don't remember. But people want to win against Stephen Thompson. They wrestle him. Right? That's what we see. We know what happens. We know the strategy. Do I really want to see that? Not really. Do I think Stephen Thompson can be the champion against Leon Edwards? Possibly. So why would I put him up against Usman? Right? This is not a good matchup for him. So I would rather have him fight... oh, shit. He can't fight anybody. Damn it. Oh, darn. Yeah, we got too many good wrestlers up here. He lost to Burns. Lost to Muhammad. Probably get wrestle-fucked by Chimaev. Covington will wrestle him. Usman will wrestle him. The only one he matches up with really well is Edwards. Damn it. Oh, if only he was higher ranking. Oh, well. Yeah, I firmly believe Stephen Thompson could be champion right now if he got the title shot. What does this mean for Kamaru Usman? He's not retiring, so I don't necessarily want to go over his career yet, but I do think it takes a little bit of a hit. Losing to Leon Edwards twice. And the second time, losing in a decision where he kind of lost like most of the fight, right? This wasn't one where it was a lucky punch, it wasn't a lucky kick, it wasn't a 10-second knockout. He kind of got handled for 5 rounds. So this kind of hurts his stock as far as being one of the greatest of all time. And I think less than that, or less about that, I think it more points to the fact that GSP, and I know GSP is in the same weight class, but I'm going to mention other guys too. GSP, Anderson Silva, John Jones, even Khabib, the way that they were able to just dominate their divisions. I think Khabib's the lesser of all those just because he didn't stay in long enough to get us a large sample size. But the way GSP, even though he took damage and even though he did have losses, the way he was just able to keep that division on lock. Like he never lost to someone twice. In fact, everybody he ever fought, he beat. Whether he lost to him or not, he lost to someone, and then he came back and he eventually beat them. And Matt Serra and Matt Hughes. So I think it just points to how hard it is to be that good. And yes, I know eras play into it. Do I think GSP would have gone? Only had 2 losses on his record. If these were the welterweights he was fighting against, I don't know. But, all other things being equal, maybe he could have been just as competitive now as he was back then. There's a lot of things that play into it, but what I'm saying is, Usman's career in the UFC is impressive. His title reign wasn't as impressive. right? It wasn't as impressive. Look at his title reign, okay? Obviously, beating whoever this guy is. That's the Ultimate Fighter. That's, different thing. Anyway, so beating Leon Edwards back in 2015, that win looks really good, but in retrospect, in retrospect, it looks really good, but with the full context of losing to him twice later, not so great. Alexander Yakovlev, 3 wins in the UFC and a ton of losses. Not exactly the most competitive guy. Orly Alves, that was a good one. That was a good win against a competitive guy. Orly Alves is a challenging dude who fought against a lot of good people. A win over Sean Strickland, that's good. Obviously, Sean Strickland moved up a weight class. Sergio Moraes, that's a great win. Emil Meek, I remember that one. Pointless. That guy, 1 win in the UFC. Not a great fighter. Just easily taken down every single time. Damian Maia, the controversial win, right? Where Damian Maia, he had the whizzer on Damian Maia, but Damian Maia was cranking his arm back and about to take position, and the referee, I don't think it was Herb Dean. I think it was Mark Goddard. Leon Roberts fucked that one up. So, controversial win, but good win nonetheless. Rafael dos Anjos, that's a good win against an undersized opponent. And then the win over Tyron Woodley, right? And then now we know, Tyron Woodley, was it that great? Okay, because Tyron Woodley looked like a shell of himself then and from then on. The win over Colby Covington, absolute great win, fantastic, great, fantastic. Jorge Masvidal didn't deserve to be in there, no reason for him to be in there whatsoever. The win over Gilbert Burns, remember he got knocked down in that first round, then proceeded to kick Gilbert Burns in the butthole for 60 seconds, which was quite strange, and then ends up getting the finish himself in the 3rd round. So good win against a quality opponent, but he was in trouble for that fight. So that speaks to his grit and his determination. But he's not invincible. Then he knocks out Jorge Masvidal. He fights Jorge Masvidal a second time for some reason. Somebody who shouldn't have been in the rankings whatsoever and is somehow getting 2 title shots. I know why he got the title shot here. It's because Leon Edwards couldn't come to the country in 2020. I get that, but whatever. Then he has a second fight against Colby Covington. So he, as a champion, he beat the same guy, or he beat 2 guys twice. And then Gilbert Burns and Colby Covington obviously being great wins. And that second fight was much more competitive against Colby Covington. It was very close. Then obviously getting knocked out by Leon Edwards and then getting not dominated, but firmly beat by him in his last one. So does his career look as impressive as a GSP's? I would say no. And unless he comes back and goes for another 6 or 7 fights unbeaten, unbeaten, then I think he's firmly in the number 2 or number 3 at the 170 range, or at the 170 weight class. So great win for Leon Edwards. I did not see that fight going like that at all. Huge surprise to me. Fantastic win for him. Great fight. All right, moving on. That was a very long coverage, but it was a title fight and a title fight that went the distance, so we had a lot to cover there. Moving on to Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. Again, just like the main event, this is not how I saw this going. Not at all. It's not at all. This was so weird. So Justin Gaethje lands a running low leg kick to start the fight. This is a much more controlled Gaethje. Somebody with much more patience, somebody who's more deliberate about all of his actions. He's not throwing himself into the fire. He's not taking a bunch of unnecessary damage, and he's being more mindful of what he's doing in the octagon. It's strange. It was very weird, and he actually didn't get the best of it in the first round. There was a left hook from Gaethje that landed. Fiziev was just landing so many front kicks, so much damage. Fiziev was he landed a knee in the clinch. His volume was just crazy, especially when they were in close. He's so fast. Gaethje feinted a takedown and landed a big right and then a leg kick, but Rafael took that first round. He just outlanded him by so much, is what I felt. Now, if you look at the striking numbers, 27-23, it wasn't as big of a gap as I thought it was. I actually felt like Fiziev outlanded him by way more than that. I felt like he was almost, landing not double, but 1.5 times what Gaethje was landing. Takedown attempt. I don't think that was a takedown attempt in that first round. If you want to call it that, you can. after the first round here, I really thought Gagey was going to be at a deficit. I didn't see him being able to beat Fiziev. I think Fiziev's game plan coming in was working really well. You could see that Gagey was kind of downloading the information a little bit. It's an overused word now in fighting in general, but I think that's what he was doing. He was kind of trying to pick his spots. He was throwing stuff out there to see what was going to happen. And then every so often he would throw himself into the fire like he usually does. And, his chin would save him. But part of the reason I thought he had nowhere to go from here is just it seemed like he exhausted all the things that he was good at, and Fiziev was just faster. He was just better. He was just doing the things at a better. He was doing things better than Gagey was. Everything that Gagey was doing, except for leg kicking. Fiziev has some good kicks, but his leg kicks are not as thudding as those Gagey kicks are. So second round, Fiziev with the hard left kick to the body. There's a cut under the left eye of Fiziev, so his face started to get really messed up. Anytime Rafael is in close, Gagey just unloads, and he lands, but the distance is all Fiziev. Anytime they would separate, the leg kicks, or the kicks at distance, the kick to the body from Fiziev was coming right back at him. The right and left eye were damaged of Fiziev by the end of this round. The leg kicks from the leg kicks to Fiziev's left leg were causing some real issues. The round was close, but the bigger moments and the bigger shots were from Gagey. So if you look at the striking numbers, he was up 32-27. So if you go just by numbers, it looks like he landed more. But if you look at, if you go back and watch this fight, by the way, this card gets an A+ from me. An A, not an A+. Okay? This card gets an A for me. Almost an A+. Right? Fun card to watch pretty much all the way through. No real down points. We'll get to the least exciting of all the fights on here, which wasn't horribly boring. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Gagey did a better job in the second round, landing the bigger shots against Fiziev. And if you look at, like I said, if you look at pure numbers here, you're going to be like, oh, wow, Fiziev really did more. He landed so much more, but 18 of his shots were to the body. So if it might seem like Gagey's headhunting here, it wasn't that he was headhunting. It was that his shots were he was landing some thudding shots to the head now. Fiziev landed some good ones of his own. In fact, the leg kicks from Fiziev, I think, would have made a bigger difference had he gone to the bank a little bit more like he did in the last round. But he took so many kicks. That's what made the difference. I kind of saw it. But later on in the second round, you could kind of see like, oh, maybe Fiziev's just losing a little bit of a step because Gagey's taking that leg from him. It's a big right hand hurting Gagey, and then a left that staggered him to begin this last round. So at the beginning of the last round, it looks like Fiziev's about to, put a hurting on him, come out strong. But Gagey was able to work his way back into the round, landing some of those overhand rights and lefts. Fiziev was wearing the damage on his face really bad. Gagey was circling well. He was landing. You could tell Fiziev was starting to get a little bit tired. The jab was nice from Gagey at one point. Fiziev was not going away, though. He just kept moving forward, kept walking him down. His pressure was nonstop, but Gagey was catching him much more in this last round. There was this beautiful uppercut from Gagey. You could see it on the replay. Just caused a giant string of snot to go flying. It was crazy. Beautiful shot from him. Fiziev was a bloody mess. And then there was a takedown to end the round. And hell yeah, that was a Justin Gagey fight. That was his round, 29-28. And I kind of we'll go over, I have not looked at the scorecard, so we will do that together. But if you look at the last round, definitely Gagey's round, 53-38 in favor of Gagey, landing a ton of damage. It's great for him. One of Paul Sutherland had it a draw, which is why I wanted to look at the scorecards. So Mark Colette had the first round for Fiziev and the second two rounds for Gagey. That is how I scored it. Paul Sutherland had it the first two rounds for Fiziev and the last round a 10-8 for Gagey. Interesting scorecard. I am glad that didn't cause a mess. And Clemens Werner had the first round for Gagey. Well, now. And he gave the second round to Fiziev, so complete opposite of what I had. Oof. There was no consensus. There was a consensus round. The last round was obviously Gaethje's, but the other ones were all over the place. That is crazy. He gave the first round to Gaethje. I love Gaethje. So I should have pointed my bias out in the beginning. I am a huge Justin Gaethje fan. It's very hard for me to judge his fights fairly. I did not give him that first round. He was outstruck. He was outdamaged. It looks like he was a step behind. I don't know how he scored it for him. I'm glad Justin Gaethje got the win, but god dang, bad scorecard. Looking at the lightweights though, what does this do for Justin Gaethje? He just took on number 6. Who did Rafael Fiziev? I keep saying Rafael because so many of these Brazilian fighters. That put a damper on him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He was on a 6-fight win streak and ran into the Gaethje train. So, yeah, man. And he had definitive wins. He was knocking people out. Yeah, dude. Fiziev's the real deal. And he was ready. Like, this was going to be his, I'm ready for a title shot thing. And he got sent back down the list by Gaethje. So, what do we do for a title shot now? I mean, Gaethje, what are we going to do? Have Gaethje take on Oliveira or Dustin Poirier again? I don't want to see that. Do you want to see that? We've already seen how that plays out. It's not that I think it'll necessarily go the exact same way a second time, but it's not for a title. Why are we doing it? He's already fought Michael Chandler. Gamrot just lost to Dariush. We're going to have him fight Dariush? Come on. I mean, you could have him fight for a title against Islam Makhachev. Let's hope it goes a different way than when he fought against Khabib. Not that we necessarily want to see him knock Makhachev out or anything, although that would be cool. It's just let's hope it's more competitive. How about that? Well, that first round, he did kick the shit out of Khabib's legs, and Khabib did not like that. All right. When he retires, I want to do a thing. I would love to do an episode on him. He's incredible. Gunnar Nelson versus Bryan Barberena. This fight was fun while it lasted. Bryan Barberena is he's game as they come. And I mean that by all definitions, the way everybody uses it. He's got a chin. He likes to get in there. He likes to scrap. Gunnar Nelson just took his time. There were some leg kicks from Barberena that were adding up early. You can see that he landed four leg kicks in this brief fight while they were standing. Gunnar got into the clinch, worked for double unders. Gunnar got the trip takedown, and then Gunnar landed some really good ground and pound with elbows, worked his way up to a really high mount, and managed to get a beautiful armbar. So great win for Gunnar Nelson. I'm glad he's back on the putting 2 wins together. I'm glad he's back on a win streak. After taking on Leon Edwards and Gilbert Burns. It's kind of depressing, but that was also back in 2019. So do I think he's much of a different fighter now? I would say no. I think he's just an older fighter with more experience. So maybe we will see him back in the rankings at some point. I think he could still beat some people in the 170-pound division. I just don't see him being a contender with his style. I think it leaves too many openings for a lot of people to take advantage of, and I don't think he has a strong enough wrestling game to counteract other wrestlers. All right. Jennifer Maia versus Casey O'Neill. This was the fight that I was like, there's lots of strikes thrown. There was a lot of activity. It's just not my thing. You know what I mean? Wow, this is not what I thought at all. Yes, it is. What am I saying? Those numbers look deceiving. You see how this blue bar, for those of you guys watching, this blue bar is higher than the red bar? I hate when they do that in here. It's just because Jennifer Maia attempted so many more. She actually outlanded her. We'll get into it. Leg kicks and decent punches from Maia to start, with Casey kind of wading in. And she was undefeated before this. She was a highly touted prospect and then got injured, so she had to have surgery. Casey finding her mark as the round started to go on. She started to close the gap in the striking numbers. Casey was moving forward, taking the center. Maia got out to a lead, and Casey just wasn't able to close the gap as far as the total striking numbers. And you can see it kind of played out that way, 47-43 in favor of Maia for the striking numbers. And that's kind of what just did, because neither one of them was landing something so significant that can outweigh being outpointed. You know what I mean? Neither fighter was out there landing some crazy big overhand or a crazy body kick that stumbled the other person. Nothing happened like that. 10-9 to Maia after the first round. Casey back on the pressure. Maia was still out there landing. It was just her volume that put her out in front. Casey was falling behind. She doesn't throw enough out there, and she just wants to stay in the fire. So she would actually wade in to striking range and not throw enough offense out. Maia would throw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then circle out. And that's what happened. Maia was backing up for a majority of this fight. I would say about 95% of this fight was Maia backing up, but she was just outlanding her, circling away, and getting out of there. So outlanding her again, 51 to 47. Although those numbers are a lot closer than I would have thought. And then in this last round, it was a very close round. O'Neal was chasing her down, and this round finally landing at the end of the exchanges. So she would actually stay in the fire and then find a shot to land when Maia tried to exit. So finally able to get one up on her. O'Neal was landing a huge right hand that looked to mess up Maia's nose at one point. Maia had plenty of volume again, but I think O'Neal did enough with that damage this round. And the volume, she threw out 113, 119, and 117 shots in round 1, 2, and 3, respectively, did Maia. And in this round, 47 to 47, so it's as close as you can get as far as total strike or significant strikes landed. But I felt like O'Neal actually landed the better strikes in that last round. This is why, if you look at the scorecards here, Vito Paulillo gave all 3 rounds to Maia. I don't agree with that one. I think it was pretty clear that this last round went to O'Neal. She landed more damage, and the only thing that would have saved Maia was the volume, and the volume just wasn't as good as it was in the previous rounds. So some weird scorecards this time, things that I think people aren't going to talk about because the right person did get the decision, but I think things that should be looked into. Absolutely. All right. Not a bad fight, though. Not a bad fight. Okay, there was lots of action in it. It just wasn't my kind of thing. It wasn't as technical as some of the other fights, and it wasn't like a brawl either. Marvin Vettori taking on Roman Dolidze. Okay, I actually do quite like Marvin Vettori. Ever since he had that emotional outburst in the hotel, I think it was back in 2020 when the guy pulled out of the fight, and then he was like laughing about it because he was sick, and then he was like laughing, and Vettori was just like, dude, he's like, you feel well, then fight me now. Like, what are you doing? Like, come on now. Anyway, I do like Marvin Vettori. I think Roman Dolidze has a lot of holes in his game, and I think he didn't get lucky, but he kind of fell ass backwards into a great position against Jack Hermansson in the last fight, and kind of he got a win there. And I mean, it's a legitimate win. It's just I think Jack Hermansson more lost that than Dolidze won. It put him in a position to take on someone ranked in the top 10. Marvin Vettori ranked number 4 here. And Marvin Vettori just kind of put him in his place. And Roman Dolidze, he's just sloppy. Leg kicks from Vettori to start the fight. He landed a ton of leg kicks throughout the fight. 12 in the first round, 14 in the second round, and then 12 again in the last round. Roman was landing a giant swinging hook that appeared to bother Vettori a couple times. But if you watch on the replay, so watching this live, I gave this first round to Dolidze, right? Marvin did a really good job throwing offense out there. Headbutt from Roman caused a cut to open up Marvin's lips. That wasn't cool. Big right hands from Roman landed, and Marvin was throwing back. 5 big shots from Roman landed hard in this round is what I said, but I watched the replay. It didn't. Vettori landed more volume and had some good ones of his own, but Roman took that one for me. I thought he landed more damage. I gave it to him 10-9. But. So, like I said, I say this every time. I scored as if I'm a judge, right? So the judges don't get to watch the replays. They don't get to go over the striking numbers. They don't get any of that stuff. Watching this live, I thought Dolidze landed a lot more than he did. If you watch those instant replays, a lot of that stuff slipped off. He did not land those shots very flush, and the striking numbers were 38-29 in favor of Vettori. Vettori landed plenty of damage of his own. So if you gave that first round to Vettori, I understand it, and one judge did. Second round here, Vettori was blocking the right hand now, and he was landing a short counter as he was landing a ton of those leg kicks yet again. Roman was putting his hands down and saying, come on, come on. And Vettori's like, okay. And then Roman just sat there, right? Like an idiot. He's like, come on, let's go. And then Vettori's like, all right, let's go. And Roman just sat there with his hands down. Didn't attack, didn't throw out his hands, but Vettori didn't back up either. In fact, Vettori moved forward and Dolidze moved back, right? So what he really wants is Vettori to throw big, stupid looping shots and get into a brawl with him and get into a 50-50 situation where he can catch him, right? And Vettori just stayed disciplined and did his damn thing. He did a really good job this round. Vettori having a great round, avoiding most of the bullshit coming back at him. He kept popping out the jab and leg kicks. I had it 19-19. For this round, 28-16 for significant strikes. Vettori was just doing an excellent job. Probably the most technical Vettori I have ever seen. Great round for him. Roman was grabbing and trying to muscle his way into a punching range. It just wasn't working, and every time he's throwing them, he's just throwing these big looping shots. They're so bad. Roman was landing some of those bullshit hooks, but Vettori avoided the biggest ones. He did land one big one in this round, pretty flush, but it didn't do anything to Vettori. Every time they get into every time they got into space, Vettori was landing really well. Vettori landed a beautiful combo, finishing with a left hand. And Roman, I wrote Roman better not win, only landing 4 decent punches in that last round. So 40-26 in favor of Vettori in this last round. And that's all three judges gave it to him. I believe they got this one right. Paul Sutherland actually giving all three rounds to Marvin Vettori. I don't necessarily, I can see it. That first round was closer than I saw on initial examination. So, all right, that is it for the main card. This video's gone on long enough. We're going to cover the prelims and the early prelims in the next couple of videos. Thank you guys for stopping by. If you like the stuff, you like Fight Breakdown, subscribe to the channel so you know the next videos coming out. I really appreciate it if you do that. Like the video if you did like the video. And I hope everybody has an amazing week. I love y'all.